Colleagues, after what occurred yesterday, someone I'm close to this morning spoke about a conversation with her 7-year-old daughter last night. And her daughter asked, "Mummy, do all Christians hate Muslims?" That summarised where we found ourselves. And we see it again, and we see it again. You see, I grew up in Australia where my brother and I were the only Asians at school, and I've spoken at length about what that was like. But, Senator, I would also speak to you about my family. My father converted to Catholicism. My beloved grandmother, a devout Buddhist. Mum, a somewhat lapsed Methodist. And cousins who were Muslim. A family of many faiths, as is our country. As is our country. This is modern Australia. An Australia that is stronger because we are united at home. An Australia that is stronger in the world because we are united at home. Stronger in the world because our multicultural society gives us the ability to reach into every corner of the world and find common ground. A nation built, Senator Babet, by people of every race and every faith. Every race and every faith. A nation that welcomes different races, different religions, views, united by respect for each other and each other's right to live in peace. A nation where a kid can grow up seeing themselves in their leaders, who doesn't get mocked or threatened or vilified because of who they are, who isn't afraid for their safety on the bus home from school, and who don't come home to find it covered in abuse. I know what that feels like, coming home to racist graffiti on your driveway as a kid. Now, whatever Senator Hanson may tell herself, it is people like these who suffer because of her immature and shameless stunt, and that is all it was. Senator Hanson has been parading prejudice as protest for decades. In her first speech to this House, she said Australia was in danger of being swamped by Asians, people like me. Now she's added Muslims to the list. In my very first speech in this place, I said that because of people like her, Australia was in danger of being swamped by hatred. And yesterday, purely to get attention, and not for the first time, it's an old play, replayed, Senator Hanson mocked and vilified an entire faith, a faith observed by nearly 1 million Australians and the second largest religion in this country. Colleagues, senators, freedom of expression is central to who we are as Australian, but so too is respect. And I believe, and I think most of this Senate believes, that disrespecting fellow Australians because of their faith is itself un-Australian. Let's understand, for a senator to punch down on a Muslim kid, that's the effect of your words. That is un-Australian. That is un-Australian. Senator Hanson makes absurd comments about people's clothing being a risk to national security at the same time as she's publishing internal floor plans of Parliament House on the internet. What I would say is our national cohesion is a strength. Our national security is risked by threats to social cohesion, because a divided nation is a vulnerable nation. Remind ourselves of what Senator Brandis spoke about when this stunt last occurred, where he spoke about the importance of working with the Muslim community in the interests of Australian national security, as he stood against your stunt then, and he was right to do so. Senator Hanson's hateful and shallow pageantry tears at our social fabric, and I believe it makes Australia weaker. And it also has cruel consequences for many of our most vulnerable, including in our schoolyards, who should be able to look to this place to set an example. And I want to end on this point, and I will, to enable Senator Hanson to, if this Senate passes the requirement for an apology, to do so promptly, can I indicate to the Senate I will move that this motion be put after 30 minutes of debate. So I want to end on this point, and that is people should be able to look to this place to set an example. This can be a robust place. This can be a place of great contest. It should be. But there should be guardrails, as I've spoken about before. There should be the recognition of the importance of civility, even where there is contest. There should be limits on what we do and what we say, and what we saw yesterday was all of those boundaries crossed. All of those boundaries crossed willingly. So the institution itself was damaged by your behaviour yesterday, because not only did you do what you did, Senator, but the chamber, the President asked you to remove that item of clothing, and you refused. A direct direction from the chair. And then, even worse, when all of your colleagues in this place, under the standing orders, or so many, the vast majority, told you to remove yourself because you were defying a direction of the President, you defied the whole Senate and stayed. I have never seen that. I have never seen someone be so disrespectful to this institution. We have given you the opportunity, should this motion pass, to apologise. And I give you fair notice, Senator Hanson, if that fails to occur, or if it's not to the Senate's satisfaction, that we will take the next step of action that is available to the Senate under the standing orders. I thank the Senate, and I indicate, as I said, I will seek to close this debate after half an hour.
Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, President. And in standing to speak to the motion that's before the Chair, I would like to move an amendment to the motion moved by Senator Wong. The amendment that we are seeking to move is done so out of complete respect for everybody in this chamber and for everybody in this country, because we believe that we must, in this place, understand and tolerate the views of everybody in this chamber, but in doing so we must do it in a respectful way. We know that Australia is a culturally and religiously diverse nation, and those values have contributed to this country, and every citizen has a role to play in the cultural diversity of this nation and the strength that it draws from that diversity. And for Australia to be recognised as a place where people can live their lives according to their beliefs, their culture, and what can be rightly considered as one of the most culturally successful nations on this planet. So it is so important that when we come into this place, that our actions, our behaviours, our words all reflect what we would like to see as our proud society. And fundamental to that absolutely has to be respect. Respect for everybody, because what we do in here is a reflection of what happens out there. We are elected to this place to be leaders in this country. Our actions are important. And I say that to every single member of this chamber. Our actions are important. And you can't come in here and accuse somebody of doing something on one side of the chamber and then do the very same thing yourself. So today we've sought to move an amendment to this motion because, as the motion says, this nation has been built on the multicultural values of this country, every race and every faith that lives here. We absolutely are a country that is welcoming of every religion, and the views and respect for each other is fundamental to that. But of course we reject any disrespect, any vilification, any discrimination in this nation, no matter what the basis. But as I said, we must reaffirm that parliamentarians have a role to play in upholding appropriate standards, because what we do here is what we cannot expect others in our community to do if we are not prepared to uphold it in this place. And we also need to understand that a safe workplace is absolutely fundamental. It's not just about us, it's also about our staff and all the staff of the Senate that we need to be considering when our behaviour in any way jeopardises, threatens or insults our staff. We also have a responsibility for that, because in this place we set the example for Australia. So in speaking to this, we believe that precedent has been set in the past in relation to somebody being suspended for an action in this place. We saw it happen with Senator Thorpe in relation to her aggressive behaviour towards another senator in this place, and that suspension took place and was acted upon immediately. We also saw a situation occur with a suspension in relation to Senator Di Natale when he refused to accept the ruling of the then chair, Senator Parry, and action was taken appropriately at the time. We do not believe that we should be coming into this place and reprecharging a decision of you yesterday, President, that was the process was undertaken, the will of the chamber was expressed, and the senator in question was required to take the action as expressed by you, and we absolutely support you in your decision, and we also support you every time that you are your actions or your rulings are disregarded. But I would say to everybody in this place, we are elected by the Australian public because they expect us to come here and do things that are important for them. Can I say that I don't believe the actions of the other end of the chamber actually are reflecting what the Australian public wants us to be doing in this place? They want us to be concerned about the issues that they are facing every day, where they can't afford to pay their bills, they can't pay their power bills, they can't get in to see a doctor, they can't afford to buy a house, they're struggling to raise their families. They are the issues that the Australian public want us to be addressing in this place. And as a party of government, that is exactly what we want to be doing in this place as the coalition. We want to be prosecuting the issues that matter to everyday Australians. So, but that doesn't mean to say that we don't take very seriously the importance of respect in relation to the conventions in this place, and respect for those conventions, the respect for this chamber, the respect for this parliament, and the respect for every single Australian. So I move the amendment as circulated in my name in the chamber, because I believe it appropriately reaffirms the commitment that every single one of us should have to Australia and to the respect that we should have for every member of our community.
I'm going to go to Senator Faruqi. Senator Faruqi.
Very much, President. We're finally, after 3 decades of piling on hate and racism on Muslims, on Asians, on people of colour, finally, at least some of us in this chamber want to hold Senator Hanson to account. Of course, decades of harm that One Nation and Senator Hanson has caused to people of colour, to Muslims, to Asians, by her racism and dog whistling, won't be taken away by this motion, but it is a start. 8 years ago, when Senator Hanson did this pathetic stunt for the first time, there was no Muslim in this chamber. There were no Muslim women in this chamber. But there are 2 of us now. And we have been making sure, and we will make sure in future as well, that every time racism and Islamophobia is called out and people who perpetrate it are held to account. And it says so much about those sitting opposite to me. They talk this talk of a wonderful multicultural nation. And I must say that when I came here first in 1992, I did think that the richness of people that came here from all parts of the world was what made this country so fantastic. But you can't just speak words. You can't just speak words and not call out what is actually happening.
Senator Faruqi, please resume your seat. I've asked you to resume your seat. Senator Faruqi, I've asked you to resume your seat. This debate will be heard in respectful silence. No, Senator Canavan, if you can't do that, leave the chamber. There will be no interjections and no comments from anywhere. I want to be very clear about that. And when I request the senator to sit down, Senator Faruqi, that's exactly what you do. And Senator Canavan, when I say to you, no interjections, that is exactly what I mean. Your leader has just been on her feet saying, we support what the President does. That means when I require you to be quiet, you are quiet. Senator Faruqi, please continue.
Well, the coalition tries to talk the talk, but when it actually comes to the crux of it, they want to remove anything of consequence in this motion and talk in abstract terms about everyone being respectful to everyone else. Sure, we should all be respectful, but this is a particular instance where the motion says that this one senator has vilified and mocked people based on their Muslim religion. It talks about disrespecting Muslim Australians. It talks about disrespecting Parliament. So you want to remove all of that, and you just want to talk about respecting each other. This is where respecting each other and just talking the talk has got us. This Parliament drips now in racism because for decades, politicians and both major parties, can I say, let it happen. And today, there's a senator here who effectively said that he hates Muslims. That is what it has come down to, because you all let it happen. And I won't let that go. I won't let that go, because for years, Muslims have been warning you all that if we don't deal with this now, this is where it'll end up. You know, Christchurch happened, where an Australian man mercilessly murdered 51 Muslims. This country did nothing. The dog whistling on migrants goes on. The dog whistling on refugees goes on. It's done by both major parties. It's done by the media. That's what has legitimized.
Order.
That is what has legitimized
Order.
what we see in this chamber
Senator
almost
Wong.
every other day. So and yes, this motion is good, finally holding someone to account, finally holding Senator Pauline Hanson to account for what the pathetic, old tactic that she used in the chamber yesterday. Yes, that's a step forward, but there is so much more to be done. On the Prime Minister's shelf, there is a roadmap gathering dust for the last 12 months. The National Anti-Racism Framework. Take that out of the shelf, dust it off, put funding into it, and start implementing it right now. If you want to deal with racism, if you say that there are some red lines, and that red line is racism, it is discrimination, then do something about it. Nazis are literally marching on our streets, and that is being allowed to happen in New South Wales by the New South Wales Labor government. So a motion is good, but that is nowhere near what we need to do. Every single person in this chamber should be forced to do anti-racism training. That has been a recommendation for a long time of various committees and frameworks. Let's start there. And at the end of the day, unless discrimination, racism, and inequity for First Nations people is ended, nothing will change, because this country was built on violence, on racism, on discrimination of First Nations people.
Order.
So today, as a Muslim woman who has faced this racism and discrimination from the day she stepped into public life, I plead with you, because it gives me no pleasure to say I warned you when I stepped into this parliament about where the normalization and legitimization of racism would lead to. I plead with you to act on it. Let this be a wake-up call today, this motion. Let this be the start of actually dealing with structural and systemic racism that pervades this country, and let that be grounded in justice for First Nations people.
Senator Mackenzie.
Thank you. It gives me...
I'm sorry, Senator Mackenzie. I'm not having advisors up at the back of the parliament of the chamber walk around. If your advisor is in here, they are sitting in the box, not standing up. It's a privilege to be in here. Order. Senator Mackenzie.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise to speak to Senator Ruston's motion, moved on behalf of the Coalition, that affirms that Australia has been built by people of every race and faith, Senator Faruqi, every race and faith, including white Australians, through the chair, reaffirms that Australia is a nation that welcomes different races, religions and views, is united by respect for each other and each other's right to live in peace. Moving motions here, pointing the finger across the chamber, calling each other racist, does nothing to move our joint cause forward, which is to continue to be the most successful multicultural nation in the globe. But when you stand up and say all you white people are somehow the problem, it does...
Order.
There you go.
I'm sorry, Senator Mackenzie. Senator Canavan and Senator Thorpe. You are being rude to the point that I have to interrupt a senator's contribution. This debate is talking about respect. Show respect for one another, whether you agree with the opinion or not. Senator Mackenzie.
Thank you. Because it is beholden on us to demonstrate this unity in this chamber, how we raise our children, how we conduct ourselves in our communities, our streets, our country towns, in a way that affirms the promise that Australia gives everybody, whether it's Senator Wong's family who came here for a better future, or my own family who came here for a better future. That is the promise. Our motion also reaffirms that all parliamentarians have a role to play in upholding appropriate standards of behaviour in Parliament. The very respect for diversity that we call on today in both motions before the chair, the very freedom to practice our faiths in this country, are built on Judeo-Christian values. Those are the values that mean we can have these debates. We can respectfully listen to a diversity of views, and Muslim Australians, Christian Australians, Buddhist Australians, atheists can live their lives in safety and security. Now, for the last couple of years, we've been debating how Jewish Australians have been impacted by issues overseas and their right to worship in our suburbs and our cities. So this is, as Senator Faruqi laid out, having a real impact out there in our communities, and not just for Muslim Australians. The values that allow us to have these debates, hopefully respectfully in places here and outside, are not reflected in so many countries around the world. North Korea, Somalia, Libya, the Sudan, Nigeria, where 4,000 Christians were
killed in 2024. We do not have that issue in our beautiful democracy at the moment, and nor should we wish it upon us. But the challenges that we see overseas, whether it is the persecution of people of faith such as Christians in places like Nigeria, whether it is the impact of migration in Europe or particularly the United Kingdom, and where there have been nations who've decided to ban the burqa, those are debates we should have honestly and respectfully here in this country, not choose to appropriate religious symbols for political purposes. And so I think there is a need for a respectful and honest debate about migration and values in this country, but this chamber needs to be a place where all the diversity of opinions that our great country holds, and their very wide, diverse opinions, are expressed. And if you don't want to listen, as the President often says to me, if you can't listen in silence, leave the chamber. But the contribution needs to be made anyway. People will violently disagree with my views on migration, on values and the number of people that need to come in, but they don't have to listen to me. But I do have a right and also a responsibility to express that view in this chamber. That's what this chamber's for. So I think without violence, without murdering people of faith, without blowing up places of worship, we have a responsibility as senators, as executive, as citizens, as parents and community members, to be the very best leaders that we can be, not just in this chamber, but outside of this chamber too. So I hope that all of us can honour the people and the diversity of views that have sent us all here, and support the Coalition's motion, which seeks to uphold our traditions and seek a respectful debate here in the chamber, not the disrespectful way it was conducted yesterday.
Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President.